What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. This is Legitical Response. I cover political news, folks. And look, I read this article the other day. A Secret Service member shot themselves in the foot. And that's the theme of today, shooting yourself in the foot. I read that article out, and it was quite funny. Totally by accident, but I mean, I'm sure you've seen, the classic, somebody step on a rake and the stick come up, the handle come up and smack them right in the face. You ever saw somebody about to do this and you said, no, stop. You're about to screw yourself. You're about to step on a rake and it's going to break your freaking nose. You're about to do something and you're going to regret it. Check this out, y'all. Harris backs ending filibuster for abortion rights legislation. Like the filibuster, if you don't know what the filibuster is, it's basically, it gives you the ability for it's democracy, y'all. This is why we're not a democracy. It's one reason why we're not a democracy, by the way. Like, so you've got a majority in the House or the Senate, right? It's mostly in the Senate. I think it's only in the Senate. I'm sorry. So normally it's pretty even. You'll have a majority, sure, but you won't have a supermajority, which is at least 60% of the Senate. So they have this little rule. So the minority, for democracy purposes, so you can't have tyranny by the majority here. They have this tool, an administrative tool, to stop certain legislation from going through, or to halt it, to bring it back for more debate, to halt this legislation, bring it to another vote later. It's a filibuster. Basically, you can stop legislation from going through, essentially. Now, this was put in place, once again, to stop tyranny by the majority. So you get a simple majority, and they can just pass anything and everything they want to. Right? That's what that tool does. Is to keep the people you represent from having to live under a tyrannical rule from the simple majority. Right? If you don't have at least 2/3 of the Senate, you can filibuster any legislation and it won't go through. That's a very good thing to do because, once again, it prevents the party that's in power from just passing anything and everything that they want to pass. It's a very good rule to have because when you find yourself in that minority, you're going to wish you had it, and they want to get rid of it. They call it the nuclear option because that's what it is. It's a very apt term to use for this because getting rid of the filibuster will allow any party that's in the majority to pass anything and everything. Now, you might think that, hang on, what if the Democrats aren't in the majority? That's why I call it stepping on a rake, shooting yourself in the foot, because that's exactly what they're going to be doing. They're going to do this. They're going to pass some legislation. And then when they get out of power, because everybody in the country doesn't agree with this insanity coming from Democrats, and they vote Republican, then Republicans are going to reverse every single thing you did and go in the opposite direction. That's exactly what's going to happen. And they're going to be wishing, they're going to be screeching to the high heavens. They're going to be mad that they got rid of the filibuster. It is crazy what Democrats are willing to do to destroy this country. Yeah, that is part of the destruction. Outright. Check it. Kamala Harris is calling for changes to Senate procedure to pass federal legislation protecting abortion rights. Harris voiced support for ending the 60-vote threshold needed to advance most legislation in the Senate, commonly known as the filibuster, during an interview in Wisconsin Public Radio that aired Tuesday. I think we should eliminate the filibuster for Roe and get us to the point where 51 votes would be what we need to actually put back in law the protections for reproductive freedom and for the ability of every person and every woman to make decisions about their own body and not to have their government tell them what to do, Harris said. So, Harris, so that means you agree with allowing people to murder each other because you have the government telling you what to do. These people are insane. The excuses they use for certain things make no logical sense because, for the simple fact, I'm very pro-life. I'll put it that way. I can compromise and agree to a little bit of abortion. I'm fine with that on a compromise. But if it was up to me, if I was the emperor, no abortions. I would allow for certain exceptions, the mother's life and, the standard exceptions. I would allow for that. But other than that, no, none whatsoever. Because once again, it's not a right to create life and then take that life away. That is not a right. And that's exactly what you're doing. And Democrats have brainwashed half of the damn country to think that this isn't a life. It's a clump of cells. As a matter of fact, we had a coworker, he doesn't work with us anymore, but I had this guy arguing, it's just a clump of cells. Well, you know what? You're just a clump of cells if you want to go that route. That's exactly what you are, just because it's still in the womb, right? Once it gets to a certain point, that's a human life. And it should have its own bodily autonomy. And you shouldn't allow for somebody else to make decisions about somebody else's body. That's exactly what you're doing with abortion. Once again, a lot of people think, they take the staunch pro-life, it's life at conception. That's what I think. Once again, I'm a person of compromise, though. I say, okay, hasn't developed a brain yet, hasn't developed a heartbeat yet. Okay. We can go with that. It doesn't have a brain or a heartbeat. Fine. I'm willing to compromise on that. But once you get to a certain point, that is another person's life, and no person has the right to arbitrarily just end that life. I'm sorry for y'all having to deal with my rant on my pro-life little rant here, but that I've got to get that across because I'm sick and tired of these ridiculous arguments. Oh, it's a woman's choice. You don't want the government telling a woman what to do with her body. You know what? The government isn't telling the woman what to do with her body. Make all the arguments you want, but it's not. The government is protecting life. That's exactly what they're doing. They have nothing to do with that woman's decisions. She already made that choice, considering these days especially all the contraceptives we have out there. There's all kinds of different contraceptives you can use. And if you don't use those contraceptives and you make that choice knowing what the outcome could be, I'm sorry, you need to live with that. Simply because that's another human being you created. You have to live with that. It'll change your life for the better. I can assure you of that. That's a lot of the excuses we hear. Oh, well, I can't afford it. Blah, 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 blah. I can't give that baby the life it deserves. There's options, folks. There is options for that. If you think you can't give that kid the life it deserves, there's options. It's called adoption. Give it up. Don't kill it. There's no need to kill it. There's no need when you can give it up for adoption and just go on about your way. It's just crazy to me. But you've already made the choice. You made the choice when you did the deed. Exactly. There's no arguments against it. I'm sorry. They don't work. Harris has for months promised that she would sign legislation codifying Roe v. Wade protections in federal law, but had yet as a presidential nominee to specifically weigh in on whether she supports an exception to the filibuster to do so. President Joe Biden has long said he supports such an exception, and in 2022, Harris promised, as vice president, to cast a tie-breaking vote to end the filibuster for reproductive rights and voting rights. Voting is not a right either. Voting is also a privilege. During her 2020 presidential campaign, Harris also came out in support of an exception to the filibuster to pass a broad climate proposal called the Green New Deal. The vice president has made reproductive rights a centerpiece of her presidential campaign, blaming Donald Trump and his appointment of 3 conservative Supreme Court justices for the 2022 High Court ruling that ended Roe, which protected the right to abortion until fetal viability around 22 to 24 weeks of pregnancy. Once again, here goes the corporate press lying, manipulating you, thinking that Roe versus Wade was about abortion. No, it wasn't. It was about federal protections, right? Ending Roe versus Wade is what I'm getting at. Ending Roe versus Wade didn't have anything to do with abortion at all. All it said was the federal government has no say-so in the matter. That's all Roe versus Wade did. The federal government is going to abstain from talking about abortion. We're going to let the states decide. So it has nothing to do with abortion at all. It's relinquishing federal power to enforce laws. That's what that's doing. This is why Republicans cheered for this. You might think, hang on, why would they cheer for this? Because now you have, in some places, no exceptions whatsoever. Because under Roe, there were certain restrictions to abortion. I think it was 22 to 24 weeks. I might be mistaken on that. But there were restrictions. You couldn't go past a certain point. And you might think, well, why would they cheer for this? Because it sends it back to the states. Some states, sure, they may have just, murder them if you want to. Who cares? All the way up to the point of birth, which some states do. Look at the situation we have in Colorado and Oklahoma. Oklahoma is very restrictive, a little bit too restrictive. They have no exceptions except for the mother's life. That's the only one, I should say. They do have one exception, the mother's life. If it's in danger, that's it. No other exceptions at all. And then right next door, Colorado has 0 restrictions whatsoever. That's a very stark difference from one to the other. Very stark difference. But this is good. This is the will of the people voting for this. That's what the people want. That's what the people get. And that's what Republicans cheer for. And some of these people, and it's mostly coming from states, all this abortion garbage, most of the proponents are arguing from a state where there's probably no restrictions whatsoever. They want to force you to have to live around a bunch of people that want to kill their babies. That's insane to me. That is outright insane. These people are authoritarians, folks. Outright. They don't care about norms. They don't care about procedures that have been in place for a very, very long time. They're willing to destroy those procedures just to get their little bit of legislation to force people in these red states to comply with their will. That's what that is. That's what the Harris campaign is telling you, that they're willing to destroy procedure to force you to comply with their ideology. It's insane. You still want to vote for Kamala Harris? Abortion has proven a salient issue on the campaign trail since, and Democrats are hoping it will again carry them to victory this year. Trump has attempted to deflect criticism on abortion by saying the issue is now in the hands of the states. That's not a deflection. That was the intent from the beginning. But once again, Politico, the corporate press, they're trying to manipulate you into thinking that Trump just wants complete restrictions on abortion outright. He wants everybody to just... It's insane, y'all. It's outright insane what they want. The odds of actually restoring abortion protections Roe held in place are long, as Democrats face an uphill battle to keep the Senate this November. But if they manage to hold their Senate majority, Democrats appear to have the votes to pass abortion rights legislation in the chamber after Senator Bernie Sanders, who said last week that he would be willing to carve out an exception to the filibuster for such legislation. Oh, you see what they're doing? Carve out an exception. Oh, we're going to nuke the filibuster just for this and then put it back in place. You can't do that, Bernie. That's insane. That's called cheating. Yeah, you can't do that, but they don't care. Democrats do not care about that. Still, Harris's position supporting reinstating Roe has frustrated some progressives in the abortion rights movement who believe that the decision whether to terminate a pregnancy should be between a patient and their doctor, and that the government has no role in regulating abortions even after fetal viability. This is that ridiculous argument that they are now basically arguing that murder shouldn't be illegal. Because the government's telling you you can't do that. Speeding should not be illegal. The government is telling you you can't do that. That doesn't work. I'm sorry. That's a poor argument. But hey, that's what the corporate press is telling you. The vice president has not said whether she supports Roe's restrictions, which allowed states to ban abortion in the third trimester of pregnancy, so long as they included an exception to save the life of the mother in addition to its protections. Okay, so that clarifies that. Harris has emerged as a much more effective messenger on abortion rights than Biden, a devout Catholic. Yeah, right. Yeah, who are you trying to fool? There is not a single Catholic person out there that's a true Catholic, a true Christian, that believes in abortion, that thinks it's okay. You might have people out there willing to compromise, once again, because less abortions is better than more abortions. That's how I look at it. Less is better than more. But who the hell are you trying to fool, trying to say that anybody that agrees with abortion up to the point of birth is a devout Catholic? I'm sorry. No, they're not. They're simply not. Who was often reluctant to say the word abortion on the campaign trail. She also has highlighted the stories of a diverse spectrum of people impacted by the near total abortion bans that have taken effect in more than a third of the country since Roe's demise, including the story of a Georgia woman, Amber Rose Thuman, who died after a hospital delayed providing her emergency medical care to remove tissue she failed to expel after taking abortion pills. She shouldn't have took the pills. I'm sorry. Sorry, that's tragic. But guess what? You know what I say? This is why I don't agree with the death penalty. Right? The only person that has the right to take somebody's life is the person that had their life taken. And look, if this lady, this may be an insane take, and, just say whatever you want down in the comment section, but if she took an abortion pill to kill a baby, and it ended up killing her, poetic justice, in my opinion. It's tragic, to be honest with you, because she shouldn't have taken the abortion pill in the first place. She could have saved herself. It's tragic, but it's poetic. Sorry, that's just the way I feel. Once again, if you break into somebody's house and you intend to kill these people and you end up getting killed, what do you want me to say about that? Seriously. Your intent was to kill, and you ended up dying instead. It's poetic. Tragic, once again. Why was that person breaking into the house in the first place? Tragic stories. Tragedy happens. That's a fact of life that, nobody likes, but we have to live with it because you're going to have tragedies. You're going to have a car wreck. Somebody's going to die. Somebody's going to get cancer. Blah, blah, blah. You get it. It's tragedy. It's bad. Why was that woman pushed to take an abortion pill? I just don't get it, y'all. Like, how could you knowingly create life and then think it's okay to take that life away? I know there's a funny saying out there that parents tell their kids all the time, and hey, I'm included. I've done it to mine. I brought you into this world. I can take you out. But that's a joke. That's not meant to be taken seriously. But that's what these people think. It's a clump of cells. That's all that is. It's no different than an amoeba. It's very different. I'm sorry. And then get this argument. I heard some argument one day that somebody, showed a dolphin fetus. Said you can't even tell the difference between a human and a dolphin. What does that matter? It's still a fetus and you shouldn't kill it. That's the most ridiculous argument I think I've ever heard. What? Who are you trying to convince here? Like, seriously, who are you trying to convince with that? There is zero convincing arguments, because I've watched lots and lots of debates on this. This, as a matter of fact, I used to be a lot more pro-abortion than I am now, back when I was a lot younger. I was all about, oh yeah, the government shouldn't control anybody. I was a lot more libertarian. The government shouldn't have no say whatsoever. You don't tell me what to do. But these days, look, the government most certainly has the ability and should step in to protect life in certain cases. And when it comes to creating life outright, once again, doctors administer abortions generally, unless it's a pill, right? If it's too far along, a doctor has to do it. And they have a creed. We talked about this the other day. They're supposed to do no harm. And that is harming another human life. And I do not get it. Abortions, especially like mid to late trimester abortions, are horrifying the way it's done. You don't just take a pill. That baby's got to come out of there anyway. You're not just going to spit it out, right? It's got to come out somehow. It's insane how they do it. I'm not gonna describe it here, but it's crazy how it's done. It's horrifying outright. It's horrifying. But I think I've rambled on for long enough on this one. I want y'all to let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comment section. Is it not the dumbest thing to just nuke procedure and just get rid of it, just to pass a legislation that half the country doesn't agree with? Right? Like, it's authoritarian as hell. I'm sorry, Kamala, your authoritarian is showing outright. But y'all let me know what y'all think. That's all I got for this one. I want to thank everybody for watching. Y'all try to have a good day. Stay legitical. Peace.